Good job.
Daniel, did you start it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm very, very happy to be back, Baruch Hashem. It's great seeing everybody. It's an awesome turnout after Pesach. And I hope everyone really had a meaningful Pesach. I know we spoke a lot about Pesach. Toda Rabba. Baruch Hu she'afos miyado.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyado.
Amen.
So, I figured maybe for the next several weeks, we have a tradition to learn Pirkei Avot from Pesach to Shavuot. So I figured we're going to do some Pirkei Avot a little bit, going into depth. Pirkei Avot tends to be a fan favorite in our everyday lives. People learn it regularly, but there is a time frame where people tend to focus on it more than other times. Now, I'm not going in order. I kind of selected something that, a topic that I don't ever recall speaking about. You want to try to diversify different topics so you don't become repetitive. So this is one topic that we didn't get a chance, I think, to cover. So right off the bat, just a little introduction on Pirkei Avot, those who don't know. Pirkei Avot are it's the wisdom of our forefathers. And in Pirkei Avot, you have many different types of kind of little nuggets of wisdom that the rabbis conveyed over to us. And they want us to use and they want us to understand that type of wisdom. And they cover almost everything. There's 5 chapters of Pirkei Avot. There's actually a 6th one as well, but it's kind of, I'm not even getting into the details of that. And a lot of these wisdom, a lot of these kind of wisdoms that is given to us. There's a ton in each perek, right? Each chapter has several different statements by rabbis, and it's fun to learn, and it's not difficult to learn, and so there's a lot that we can all benefit from it. So it's over the years that all of this wisdom combined together that they kind of put it in one book, and they have given it over to us. So every year we learn it. Now, why do we learn it between Pesach and Shavuot? Because as you know, on Shavuot, it's the time in which we got the Torah. We celebrate, it's Matan Torah. So what do? We have custom, we learn all night, we do different types of things. And from Pesach is the time where we left Mitzrayim, and then if you count 49 days, because we have the Sfirat HaOmer, we count the Sfirat HaOmer every night. Be'ezrat Hashem, maybe we'll count one tonight, just so we can continue the flow. And then there's 49 days, and by the 50th day, we got the Torah. So Pirkei Avot, the reason we learn it is because it's oftentimes, it talks about things that are related to character behavior. So we want to be able to develop ourselves in preparation for receiving the Torah. So that's one of the reasons why we learn Pirkei Avot. So I wanted to start actually with the 5th chapter, and with Mishnah Yud Aleph. And this is a very famous Mishnah. The Mishnah begins the following. Arba'a midot bede'ot. Right? There are 4 different kinds of temperaments. What are they? Noach lich'os ve'noach leratzot. Yatsa schero behefsedo. Which means as follows. There are people where they become angry very easily. However, on the flip side, they also calm down rather quickly. They're easy to you can placate them in a very easy way. They'll forgive you relatively quickly. That's one type of person. Then you have another type of person where they're exactly the opposite. They're slow to anger, and at the same time, it takes them a very long time to forgive. There, the result is the opposite, which is yatsa hefsedo bescharo. I'm going to explain what these things mean. In the first one, we have 2 different type of people. One person, quick to get angry, quick to forgive, and the other type of individual is they're slow to anger and they are slow to forgive. Which one do you guys think is better? The first one or the second one? Which has a net gain? First one is better. Okay.
First one.
Who said the first? I heard the back. Which one is better? So we have one here first. They think the first one is better. Second one? Huh? Second one's better.
Why should one of them be better?
I feel like those who are saying the first is better are more quick to get angry, and those who are saying this one is better. We'll see which is better.
Say second one's better.
Slow to anger,
No, what? That's godlike. And the Mishnah discusses this. I'm not even talking about that today because that's the ultimate goal, right? And obviously nobody wants to be quick to anger and slow to forgive. That's the worst. I feel bad for someone like that. They suffer. I'm not talking about the latter two. Just focus to easy to get angry, easy to forgive. Which means I'll say you'll know the answer right away. The first person, which is easy to become angry, right? They're easily angered versus easy to forgive. Is getting angry a bad thing? Everybody can understand it's a bad thing, right? So if I get angry, that's a loss for me. That's a loss. What's bigger? Is the loss going to be bigger than me getting angry, or is the gain going to be bigger in me forgiving faster, forgiving quickly? Which one is going to be bigger? Because there's a gain. If I forgive quickly, it's a gain. But is the gain bigger than the loss, or me getting angry fast and quickly? Is the loss going to be bigger than the gain of easily being forgiven? What do you guys think?
Cancel each other out.
The forgiveness is bigger.
Forgiveness is bigger? So I'll tell you, the rabbis say like this. Someone who's quick to anger. If someone, sometimes I get phone calls for shidduchim. People call me. Yesterday I had someone called me. Last week someone called me about, people put me, as a frame of reference. Hey, can you refer me? If I put you, can someone call you and ask questions about me? I say, sure, not a problem. If I know you well, I'm going to happily answer. And I'm going to answer honestly. What I don't know, I say, I don't know. And so if someone says, hey, this person, I had this woman ask me last week, she says, what kind of person is he? Because I like kind of like Eastern European type of character and behavior. And I'm like, what? What do you mean Eastern European type of behavior? I had an idea of what she was referring to, but I kind of overlooked it and we moved on. But if the concept of anger, I understood that anger was a concern for her, or lashing out, or being impulsive was a major concern for her. I understood that. But if someone say for shidduchim, you would want to know if someone gets angry, if they have a bad temper. In fact, I think everybody can understand that in any relationship, if someone has a really bad temper, we're allowed to get angry, but if someone has a really bad temper, it's very hard to have a succeeding relationship. It's a very difficult thing to do. So what the Torah says, actually what the rabbis say is, and forgive me for those who felt like the first Mishnah is better, it's actually the person who gets angry quickly, the loss is much bigger than the gain of forgiving quickly. So they end up having a net negative. Like you have a balance sheet in front of you, right? You have a positive, maybe cash flow statement, or a negative cash flow statement. Over here you have a negative cash flow statement. Why? Because just logically speaking, if every little thing I'm going to get angry at, what's the result? What kind of decisions am I going to make when I'm angry? Obviously not good decisions. And if I'm constantly angry, if every little thing ticks me off, it's very hard for me to have proper relationships, not just with other people, but with myself and ultimately with God. Then you have the second person. And they are, right? So we have, that's a deficit by the first person. The second person is they're slow to anger, but they're also slow to forgive. They're grudge holders. It takes them a long time. That being slow to anger and controlling yourself and having the ability to do that, it's a massive gain. It's a much bigger gain. Taking your time to forgive, holding grudges, it's a biblical prohibition. You're not allowed to hold grudges. It's no joke. You shouldn't take it lightly. But because it may take you a long time to forgive, because maybe you hold a grudge or whatever the reason may be, but the gain is so big that the losses disappear within the gain, and therefore you're in a positive net situation. You're positive. It's a positive reality.
Emotional debt? Carrying that
Be specific. What do you mean?
because you're holding it in.
Right. Well, so to yourself,
That's bad.
you're right. So to yourself, it's obviously not good. No question to yourself, it's not good.
So
And
you're
it can-
starting from zero as it is.
So it's corrected for yourself, it's not a good thing to do. But as a general rule, being slow to anger is more beneficial because it takes a long time to get a person angry, right? So maybe it happens 4 times a year or 5 times a year. But that emotional thing that you refer to, now take somebody who gets angry 60 times a year. That emotional thing that you're referring to is a lot more severe by the body. Those, and time again, yeah, they're quick to forgive.
But it clears the sheet right away.
It does, but so many times, because everybody understands stress, you have stress on your body again and again, and it clears it out, but it's a repetition of it. It puts stress on the body, right? So the body can handle a lot of stress, we understand that. But the amount of times becomes a lot more difficult ultimately. So, which leads me to the next part. I'm not a whiz in how not to become angry, but we should explore it. How do we get? First, we want to understand why is it that the first one, because some of you still think no, it's better to get angry and then easily forgiving is. Some of you may feel no, I feel like that's actually better, versus the other one. So we're gonna demonstrate why that's what the rabbis are saying here, so we can understand why the second one is more beneficial than the first one. We're gonna explain that, and you'll see as we go along. But how do we not get angry? How do we get to a situation where we're a lot more in control? So Maimonides, very famous, everybody knows the Rambam, Maimonides. He has a very, very compelling questions, and it's a question that other philosophers have asked before. And this is the following question. He says, what's better? Is it better to control myself? Right? For a person to control themselves when they have certain desires? Or is it better not to have a desire at all towards things? So anyone want to take a shot at this?
Schar is bigger when you control your desire.
What?
Schar is bigger when you control your desire.
That's true, but I don't want to look at it now from a perspective of what's the account. What's the accounting here?
Desires.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's a good point. Any ideas?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The question was, is it better to control yourself, control your desires, or is it better not to have a desire at all?
Control your desires.
Control your desires.
Of course.
If you don't have desires, it means you're unhealthy.
You have no.
It's not
What kind of human doesn't have desire? Yeah.
It's not true. You're just incontent.
So I like that at least he's disagreeing, because a lot of people are agreeing here and he's disagreeing. What do you want to say? Yeah.
No, you're also put in this world to have desires, so you can have whatever.
That's also true.
Desires of void.
Okay.
Because if you're incontent,
I mean, to a certain extent, there is, if I'm hungry and my stomach is,
that's empty when it's
right, there is a sense, you're right, there is a sense of void, but there's also a sense of, at the same time, of having fulfillment in doing certain things, right? So these, both can, we have to kind of figure out what's that line. So we have a physical desire, but for example, you know the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So he goes in and he discusses the basics. You have to eat, these are physical things for the body, then you have, it's something where then you have, you want to be in a good community, in good places. And the last part is kind of self-actualization, which means I want to be able to make something of myself, where I can be proud of what I become. Not in an arrogant way, but that I've done something with myself, right? That need is a healthy need. It's a healthy desire, right? In that sense, exactly, fulfillment. So, I'll tell you how Maimonides breaks this apart. He says like this. We know in the Torah we have 2 types of mitzvot. We have the logical mitzvot that we can understand. God, it's really hot here. And then we have the other types of mitzvot, which ones that we don't know the reasons for them. I'll give you an example. Right? He says like this: things that are we don't really understand those reasons, right? Like eating steak with butter. That's probably very good. It probably tastes very good. Or maybe, people say bacon is very good. Or whatever it is, people have tried, maybe certain seafood is phenomenal in taste. We're not allowed to have that. And kosher food, it's not a law that's based on logic. There's a reason out there, and we don't know what the reason is. It's called a chok. Chok means it's a rule that we don't know the reason for it. There is a reason, it exists, we just don't know what the reason is. That's chok. Then you have logical mitzvot.
This is actually not awesome.
You can't steal, you can't murder, right? You can't take advantage of people, etc., etc. These are logical mitzvot. So you have two types of mitzvot. So this is how Maimonides breaks it down. He says like this. Things that are, when we have reasons, right? Things that, mitzvot that we don't know the reasons for them. Why we keep kosher food? I want to try steak with butter. It looks good to me. But what can I do? God says, you can't have it. That's something that I desire and I want. That's a good thing where I need to control. But then my mom says, that's normal. It's good to control these types of things. All these types of things that you physically desire on a normal level. But then you have things like stealing, murdering, right? Like you have like serial killers. All these things, that's not a normal thing. That you should not desire. Do you see how we split it up? Things like that are logical, that we shouldn't murder, we shouldn't steal. That we should never desire to do these things. That we can understand. But things that are that come from a physical perspective, we want to derive physical pleasure from. These things we should not. We can, and we want to have these things, but we want to control them. Which comes out to the following thing: the Torah. What the Torah does here is it splits the two different types of perspectives here. The Torah obligates us to behave in a certain way sometimes, and the Torah obligates us to become a specific person in other times, which means like this. You have regulating behavior. The Torah wants us to behave in a specific way, and then other times the Torah wants us to become a specific person. The Torah wants us to have specific character traits. So you have character versus behavior. They're two. Now, when you have character and behavior, they're correlated. There's a relationship there, right? If a person behaves in a specific way, it can reflect what type of character they have. So if a person, like for example, is prone to anger and they have a bad temper, we know that they're a hothead. They always get angry. They have a bad temper. That's their character because their behavior reflects it outwards. And then you have something that actually can be the opposite. Sometimes character and behavior can actually affect each other in the opposite way. I'll give you an example. God forbid you're driving, and when you're driving, maybe leave it open. Maybe leave it open. There's AC right now. It works.
Insane.
The fire's coming from outside.
Just so you know, I think who said it? I think Zvika said it. He said, the more we have to be in here and get cooked up, the greater the reward for this shiur. So at least there's the reward for this is tenfold for maybe all the other shiurim that we guys have here. I kid you not. So the Torah, like I said, it wants us to behave in a specific way, and sometimes it wants us to become a specific character. And so I said, if you're driving and you see a doctor, you see God forbid somebody in a car accident, and they're laying down on the floor. Maybe God forbid they got hit by a car. Your natural instinct, I gotta go help them. But you know, if you pick them up, you can break their spine. So as a person, you're very caring. You want to go there, you want to help. But at the same time, you know if you help, what's going to happen? If you behave in a way that's helping, you can crack their spine. Do you see how the character and the behavior can contradict each other? You want to behave in the right way, but at least from how you are as a person, but you can do something to hurt them. The same is true with negotiating with terrorists. Of course, we want to be able to do what we can to bring back hostages, right? Like for example, the Gilad Shalit. You guys remember Gilad Shalit? Mm-hmm. How he was Hamas, a terrorist. They came and they kidnapped him, and they released 1,000 terrorists for one. At least they believe that one Jew is worth 1,000 Palestinians. Maybe that's a compliment, but at the same time, they released 1,000. And you know what? One of the people they released was one of the masterminds of October 7th. It was actually one of the masterminds. So on the one hand, you say, wait, we gotta save our fellow Jew, but at what cost? Because the cost may be tenfold or 100-fold worse. So over here, the right behavior is, or the right character trait is, I'm responsible. I'm responsible because I know the cost is too great to save. Because it may come back and bite us 100 times or 10 times worse, whatever it is. So over here, I'm showing my behavior. Oh, it's wrong. How could you do this? You're heartless. You don't care. You're mean. That's the behavior that I'm exhibiting outward. But at the same time, I have to be responsible. So sometimes character and behavior can clash. When the Torah talks about mitzvot, a lot of times it tells us how it wants us to behave properly. But when does the Torah talk about character traits? The way the Torah talks about character traits is actually by talking about God. When it tells us God is a compassionate person, right? It uses human expression. Human expression, they express this person is kind, this person is reserved, this person is forgiving or slow to anger. Whenever we talk about God, we talk about character traits, right? That's one of the things that the Torah always discusses. The prophets, the way they express God is always in human terminology, in human expression. So, which means that when the Torah does that, that is the ultimate level that we can get to. We can behave in the right way, which is great, but there's a higher level where we should become a specific type of character. That's when we talk about God. And I want to tell you, I'm going to go into this and really explain it on a deeper level. If I am angry, if I have a bad temper, if I'm hot-headed, I know I need to become a person who's slow to anger. So there's two ways for me to do that. I can start with the behavioral part. Let's say I had a bad day at work. I'm frustrated. Maybe clients maybe clients spoke in a way that was disrespectful, and I had to take it. Maybe one of your best clients disrespected you, right? That's a possibility. But now you can't really respond back to them the way you'd like because, well, they give you a lot of business. But you're frustrated, or maybe you did whatever you can, and work people were not honest with you and wasted your time, and you're very, very upset, or you missed a golden opportunity. You come home, and all of a sudden, because you're so angry, you decide to unload. Now, who do you unload on? Typically speaking, those that are closest to you. Maybe your siblings, maybe your parents. If you're married, your wife. If you have children, your children. You begin to take everything out on other people. Right? Now let's say you are on the receiving end. Someone comes home and gives you that treatment. They make you, and you're like, what's wrong with you? I did nothing wrong to you. Like, why are you unloading your emotional baggage on me? Like, so you can go and you can start defending yourself. Another fight ensues. Now you guys are getting into a fight and it gets very ugly. That's one way to handle it. Not exactly effective, but then there's another way. Imagine I come home from work and I'm upset and I unload my anger on my wife or my children. And then my wife tells me, after I unload my anger, like maybe a minute later, how was work today? Everything okay? In that moment, when she asks me, hey, how was work today? Was everything okay? I'm clearly angry, but she took my anger and she gave it a place where now my anger is diffused. Part of my anger is dissipated. Because in the question she asked me, she didn't take it personal. Or if you're on the receiving end, you don't take something personal because you realize even though the anger is directed at you, you're not the cause of the anger. So you don't take it personal. So you are behaving in a way which you realize this person has a problem. They struggle. They had a bad day, they're unloading their anger. Like sometimes you can stand in a supermarket, maybe you have this, or people aren't standing in a line, and sometimes people get very nasty. Maybe they're in a hurry, they had a bad day, and they give you some sort of a comment. You're like, what is this guy's problem? Mind your own business. So people typically speaking, in a lot of cases, they're not literally angry at us, but because we have a closeness with other people, we get close to them, we really are very close to them, they need a place to unload the anger. So we have to think, is it personal to me, or is it because they had a bad day? That's one piece of advice to manage anytime someone comes and unloads your anger. Look at it. What's actually happening here? Figure that part out, because you know you didn't do anything wrong. That's one type of behavior. But then there's a second thing, which is harder than the first thing, which everybody can do it, but it's extremely hard. That, let's say it is personal. It is personal. Someone came and did something to you on a personal level. You want to defend yourself. Fine. You have that option. But maybe, just maybe, God wanted it to be personal towards you because we're not perfect. We do certain things, and sometimes, instead of maybe, God forbid, Hashem hurting us on a physical level, we get emotional slap here and there. We get a sting here and there. And it bothers us. In reality, I'm not perfect. A person can speak Lashon Hara. A person can maybe belittle somebody else. A person can, do certain things that are it makes God very upset. And sometimes, even though it's personal, yeah, it is personal, and it's something that it's not a good feeling, but Hashem says, listen, you're not perfect, and there's a way where I need to deal with you in a way where, even though we sometimes deserve things to us, so Hashem wants to dilute the punishment. How does God dilute the punishment, quote unquote? Instead of giving us one big slap, smaller slaps. And we have to learn also how to take it. That's the next level, where one level is, it's not personal to me. The other level, it is personal. Okay, God wanted me to get it. David HaMelech, when he was, it's a very famous thing, David HaMelech, when he was, at the time he was a king, you had one of the people at the time came to David HaMelech, and he cursed him. And not regular curses. I mean, imagine a king, and you have to understand, in halakha, a king, in Judaism, has a very high status. Someone who disrespects the king, if the king summons him and doesn't show up, they can actually get the capital punishment for that. King has a very high position. So Shimei ben Gera, that's his name. He came to David HaMelech in front of people and he cursed them. That is, typically speaking, that's deserving of the capital punishment. So David's general was next to him, and he was about to take care of business. One of David's generals was about to come to Shimei ben Gera, and let's just say, make sure he'll never speak like that again. So David HaMelech told him, stop. God told him to curse me. You have to understand, there's a lot of content. There's a big message in that. It's when he says God told him to curse me, it's not that God revealed himself and he says, hey, go curse me. It means that this is something that David HaMelech felt like he deserved. And even though he's a king, and at the moment he didn't react. But later on, he did get his punishment, this person, through David HaMelech's son. And so there's a reality where, there's certain things we do deserve, but that's the highest level. You don't want to subscribe to that? That's fine. I have a different option for you. And this option, I think, is probably the most meaningful option out of all of them. And it goes, this, before even I get to this, I want to mention something very, very important. That by God, when Hashem, when we talk about God's trait of being slow to anger, what that means is that all of us want to get to a reality where maybe we're not angry, or we deflect certain things that come our way that can make us angry. We're trying to deflect it, right? But what's the goal? How do I not feel angry? The goal is how not to feel angry, not necessarily, that's the ultimate goal. Because feeling angry is what consumes you. It's what makes you take certain decisions that we often regret. The ultimate goal is, how do I not feel angry? And that's very difficult. How do we get to that? Because that's what God is. That's not to say that you don't get angry at times, because you're a human being. That's not to say that God doesn't have his moments where we see God does get upset, quote unquote. But again, it doesn't mean that in God terms, it means that in human terms. So what does it mean? How do I get to a place where I don't feel the anger? What? Bitachon? Who said that? Bitachon? What does that mean? Sivika, tell me.
Trust everything happens for a reason.
Okay, and that's true. If you have emunah, you're right. If a person has emunah and bitachon, they will be less angry in life. Emunah gives it to a person. It really, really does. And I'll say this. when you feel, when you have the surge of anger and you say, wait a second, it's from God, I accept it, that's good. But this is a behavioral response. I think I've said this before. If you give charity, that's behavior. That's one thing. But you can be a charitable person. You see the difference? I'm giving charity, I did the right thing. That's the right form of behavior. But then I can become a charitable person. That it's second nature to me. Both are actions that show that I'm giving charity, but one is a character trait within itself, and the other is a behavior, which comes out an unbelievable thing. Somebody hurts you. You're in a relationship with somebody. Maybe a brother, a sister, husband, wife, business partner. I don't care. Any relationship where you're very close with that person. They insult you. They hurt your feelings. You have the right to respond. You have the right to say what you want. The ball is in your court. And if you would respond, it gives you relief. You feel good. I got this guy. Or I got her. Whatever it is. You feel very good about it. I'm not frying. Everybody knows what frying is in here, right? It's Israelis' worst nightmare is to feel frying. If they don't sleep at night. There's nothing worse than that.
Deep fried.
So that's one way to do it. But there's another way to do it. In the moment you are hurt. You have pain. Allow me to finish this before people jump at me by saying this. It's important. Even though you have hurt and you're upset at the moment, but you say, you know what? This person hurt me, and they hurt me, and it gives them relief, I'll let them have it. I'll let them have it. Why? Why would I let someone have it? If I'm in a close relationship with someone and they cause me pain, why would I let them have their relief and I should not respond back and get my relief? Why not?
Wasting your energy.
That's true too.
You care about them.
Huh?
You want them to have the win.
You want them to?
Have the win.
You want them to have the win. What does that mean? Tell me. I like that answer. Huh?
You care about them.
You care
they
about
need it.
I love that. See, I'm telling you what he said right now is unbelievable, because we have to realize that everybody has their space. Everybody needs their own space. And even though I want relief, and so does the other person, I need to realize that if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I want the relationship to succeed, I need to be able to absorb some pain. I need to be able to absorb some pain. I have to. Anytime you're in a relationship, you're not willing or preparing to absorb some pain of the relationship, it's not going to succeed. Giving a person their space, even though you may absorb some pain. I'm not saying you should be in an abusive relationship. We spoke about this a while back. Not being an abusive relationship. But any relationship means that it's inevitable. To a certain extent, there's going to be abuse. One way or another. And sometimes we have to let it slide, and we have to give, the other person needs relief. They let it out. And you know what happens when you allow that to happen? And they say, okay, you know what? You win, like you said. You get your relief. Not a problem.
It's my turn. No.
But when you do that, it's very difficult. I want to tell you, it's so difficult to give up your space. That space, that your personal space, the space where you demand respect, the space where you feel like it's cutting at you, it's a part of your character, and you have to give that space. It is so difficult. But if you want to succeed, it's a necessary ingredient to be in a successful relationship. It's a huge accomplishment. In any relationship, you have to allow it to happen. That's what God is. How many times we do things and God is reserved? How many times we do things and we deserve a lot worse, but He doesn't do anything? He gives us our space to react. You know what happens? When you know you don't react well to something, did you ever maybe lash out on somebody? Or you did something you're not proud of? And nobody made you feel bad about it? What happens? You yourself recognize, I did something wrong. I did something I'm not proud of. That also gives you a chance to work on yourself. That means when you do that to other people, if you really care about them and you really love them, you really give them a chance to see for themselves. I need to work on this problem that I have. And that's so important because if you really, if that relationship is driven by love and it's driven by this relationship is one of the most important relationships I have in my life, I'm willing to absorb some of that pain. I know a case of, this happened very recently, of someone, there was a pretty big fight, and once one person to the other, they're very close, really wasn't fair. Because, you know, if whenever there's a problem, one of the key things to solving problems is communication. If you don't communicate, it's very hard. It's very hard. There's, you know, a lot of times as men, we have to figure out what women are telling us. It's not easy. And sometimes to them, it's like how could you not figure? I'm not talking about, hey, I like flowers. Okay, that's easy. So you go and you buy flowers. Sometimes they want you to read between the lines. They want you to understand. And for us men, it's a challenge. We want to be able to we communicate directly. And then sometimes some people communicate indirectly. And it's a challenge. But if one person expects the other person to understand just by saying one sentence or one word, it's very difficult. And I know a person that was heavily attacked because they expected something by just saying one word, one statement. And that person was very angry and very upset. And what they did is they took their pain, they set it aside, and they said, you know what, I'm sorry. This person is not a pushover, I promise you. Far from it. It was very hard for them. They said, you know what, I'm sorry. I understand you're in a lot of pain right now. And moving forward, I'll see what I can do to make sure it doesn't get to this situation. But right now, because you're in so much pain, I'm not looking at the right and wrong. I just want to see what I could do to help. Let me see what I could do to help. And for this person, it was like splitting of the sea. And I told him I was so inspired by that behavior. I should ask him to give me a blessing. When a person does something that's against their nature, go ask him for a blessing. Because that moment, things can happen. They become like a very, very holy in a sense where they can ask for things and God can grant it to them. Because they're going against their nature. It's a very difficult thing. And so when you in a relationship with somebody and you care about them, you have to learn how to absorb pain and stay quiet. It's important. And there's times where we're going to do the same thing to them. And we do that, there's a good chance they may do too, but we don't expect it. Yeah, I had a conversation with my rabbi about something, and I said, God, Rabbi, if I do this, then I know God is going to do this for me. He tells me, no. What are you talking about? And we think in our mind that, because I do good, God's going to give me good. It's not the right way to think. You know what's the right thing, the way to think? That I'm doing the right thing. And the right thing that I'm doing does not depend on whether God is going to give me or not give me. That's already none of my business. I want to behave in the right way. That should be the focus. And this is where giving up, this is where if I give up my space and I'm willing to absorb it, now I'm slowly changing myself and my character is becoming slow to anger. Which means if someone can say something to me and I can absorb their pain and I don't react, that means now I've developed the character to being slow to anger. That is very difficult, but that's one of the ways, but that's a lot more beneficial than just always having behavioral tips. How should I behave when this happens? How should I behave when that happens? Because you always got to figure out ways how to respond. But then if you get to a reality where you don't have to respond, it's already a part of who you are, you don't feel angry. That anger is not running deep in your veins. That rage is, you have a split second, but that split second is, you understand, like, you know what, it's fine. I'll let you have it. And it's difficult. But if we do that, almost all relationship we're going to be in is going to be extremely successful. Extremely successful. I once walked into a place where I saw two business partners, very successful business partners, screaming at each other. Like crazy, back and forth. This guy, that guy, back and forth. After a few minutes, they kind of get back together, everything is all good. Because they understand there's a value here in this partnership. And then we have to realize that it's inevitable. You want to succeed in the relationship, you have to learn how to absorb pain. Once you do that, your character is going to be slow to anger. It's very difficult, but it's very much worth it. And this is where I go back to what we said in the very beginning. I said, you know, what's better? A person that's easily angered and then they're slow to forgive. They're easily angered and they're quick to forgive. Right? We said that's one type of person. And then we said the second type of person is, no, person is slow to anger, but there's slow to forgive. Right? If I'm quick to anger, that's a character problem. If I am quick to forgive, that's a behavioral problem. Someone came and said, I'm sorry. Okay, it's fine. I let it go. But if I'm slow to anger, that is a character. That is a character trait. And if I am slow to forgive, that's a behavioral problem. It takes a long time, but it's a behavior thing that I need to adjust and work on. Now we can understand why the second is more beneficial than the first. Because what drives the second is, it takes a very long time for a person to get angry. If it takes me a very long time, or rarely if a person becomes angry, what does it mean? That they don't feel anger. You could do many things, but they typically don't feel anger. The feeling is it's the litmus test, it's the metric, is am I slow to anger or am I not slow to anger? How often does it happen? It's the frequency. How often does it happen that I feel the anger? And the other part is if I feel the anger often, that's already a trait that I have, because it's hard for me to get through it. This is why at the end of the day, your net benefit in being slow to anger, even though it's not good to being slow to forgive, you should forgive. And it may take you time, but you should forgive, and there's a loss, there's a shortage in that. But the gain is so big in being slow to anger that even though you're slow to anger, it swallows that shortage, it swallows that loss, that you end up with a positive. And the opposite is true regarding the first people, that the person is so quick to getting angry, and that's such a severe loss, that even though he's quick to forgive, it's just a small gain, that loss is too great. And because that gain is swallowed, it disappears. The gain disappears within the gain, within the loss itself, excuse me. This reminds me, you guys know Rabbi Adrian, he told me a story about his father, where his father was learning Torah with a Holocaust survivor. And one of my favorite stories. And so he got up to make tea for himself. Rabbi Adrian's father got up to make tea. His name is Rabbi Eliyahu. He got up to make tea. And he said to him, hey, would you like some tea too? He tells him, yes, I want to have some tea. He says to him, how many spoons of sugar do you want? He tells him 4 spoons of sugar. So Rabbi Eliyahu tells him, 4 spoons of sugar. The guy's a Holocaust survivor. He tells him, it's not healthy. So he responds back, getting angry is not healthy. Getting angry is not healthy. And that made such an impression on me. It's not healthy, not just in a physical sense. It's not healthy in the emotional sense. It really isn't. And that's the goal here. Always remember, the more we engage in the proper behavior, we can ultimately refine our character. That's always good, and there's ways to do that. But the goal is, is not to try to deflect ways not to become angry, because if I become angry, I get the feeling. The goal is being a person, having a character trait of where I'm slow to anger. And if we get to that level, our life is going to be a lot more beautiful. A lot more if you have kids, with your children, with your wives. I know this to be true, and I say this to the men, and this is also to the women. If your spouse is an angry person, it's very hard to live with them. You're always on edge. You're walking on eggshells. You have to think of what to say. It's not natural. If you have a father like that or a mother like that, you're not yourself. It doesn't. We have to give the ability to people to be who they are, even if they're wrong. Like even if a child is wrong, let them be who they are. It's very important. And a lot of times, my daughter, she's got a mouth. I mean, she's respectful, but she really knows how to, we're sitting on a table, and my one of my, I think, I don't know who it was, one of her aunts was arguing with her, and she's 7. She's like, and we're like, well, how are you answering? Like, and she wasn't disrespectful, but she answered like a very, very confident way. So she said the following. She said, yeah, I can cry, I could do that, But I don't want to do that. I want to stand up for myself. And it was such a meaningful moment that maybe she wasn't the most respectful. And there's a way to say, listen, to have a conversation on about it. There's ways where, but you have to let it be. You have to allow people to be who they are. It's true to children. It's true to friends. It's true to spouses. It's true to business partners. We have to allow people who they are. And when we allow them to be who they are, they have a chance to actually work on themselves. Absorb some of the pain. I'm not saying be in an abusive relationship. We spoke about this. That's not what I'm saying. That's something else. But allow it to happen. Give people the feeling that they can be who sometimes they are, and you can accept them for their shortcomings. And eventually they'll work on it. But the goal is to be a person who's not, I'm not just trying to behave in a way to avoid myself from becoming angry, rather I'm trying to get to a level where I don't feel the anger as much as I used to. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So if someone attacks another person, like verbally attacks another person, what's the first thing that should come to his mind, like in regards to like answering, defending himself?
Beautiful.
What's the first thing you should think
I love that. I love that question. So in the 2 tips that we discussed is, oftentimes someone attacks you. If you did something wrong, for the most part, if you're aware of it, you know. You know. And if you realize this person is getting angry at me, why are they getting angry at me? Is it me? If it's me, then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're right for getting angry at me. Maybe.
So
That could be reality. But if it's not me, if I didn't do anything, really, and there goes, I realize it's their problem. It's personal. It's not personal towards me, they have a problem. They just don't know how to properly express it. They have a bad day, or they unload their anger at you. But don't, and this is why I say this oftentimes, you don't want to change your good character or allow somebody to get under your skin and bring out the worst in you because they have a problem. And we fall, it's a trap that we fall into often. You know they got a problem? Let it be. That's their problem.
So you're saying like basically dig deep into why he's doing, why
Yes.
he's saying what he's saying.
Meaning, yeah.
Like ask yourself why he's doing that.
In the moment it's very difficult, but oftentimes when we do get attacked, right away, in the tone of voice and the behavior, we realize like, what does this person want from me?
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with me.
Yeah. And just one more
Go for it.
question.